Hi, Amber. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I work with women exclusively, and when I was looking through all the profiles of people I could talk to that could help my listeners to have more support in terms of their sense of worthiness, their ability to connect in relationships, all of that, the embodiment. Your profile jumped right out at me because you're so uniquely devoted to that kind of work. Can you explain a little bit more about what got you started on this path?
Yeah, thank you for saying that. So I was someone who was in a hamster wheel of dating unavailable men, and I had a breakdown or breakthrough where I realized that I was creating my reality. And because of what was happening internally, because of my schema, my neural pathways, and what had happened in the past, I was attracting a certain type of person. And I did a lot of healing work and training and everything under the sun. And there's not one thing that works. It's just whatever you're resonating with. And I changed what I was doing. And I really, similar to how people optimize their health or sleep, I did that with dating. And I met my husband, who's securely attached. And it's not always perfect, but it's way better than anything. And it made me understand that we are creating our reality and who we attract and who we bring into our lives. And I kind of knew that before, but I had never applied it to dating because I thought it was something that was supposed to be easy. I thought it was just, and I think that's how we're raised. So that's how I came to this work, is that this is what I did for myself. And whenever I started doing coaching, I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to teach women that they have a choice. They don't have to end up in settling relationships with emotionally unavailable people.
Wow, because I feel like before maybe 20 years ago, we weren't even aware of the fact that we are attracting what we're getting. I feel like even that is a huge change and a huge advancement for us to even think that we have some power over who we attract. Because it seems like my parents' generation and the one before, I don't think that they thought that way. I don't know what they thought, but this is really big news that we can actually change who we attract. It's really amazing.
Yeah, and I think people are experiencing it psychologically and in therapy, and much more people are into mental health and they're understanding, oh, I can change this mental habit that's maladaptive to me. This is just very specific with dating. And if you think about the history of romantic love, really, we've not been doing romantic love for very long. It used to be about, joining families, or, it wasn't really about romance or love. It was more about convenience and what made sense at the time. And a lot of our ways that we've learned about relationships, especially in the US, unfortunately, and really across the world, is through movies and TV shows. And a lot of what we see is that meet cute, instant rush of chemicals and chemistry, but that's not what creates a lasting partnership.
Yeah. Oh my God. Definitely not. I would love for you to tell me more about what you said earlier about your system, how our systems are wired. Can you explain more about what you mean by that?
Yeah. So when we're kiddos, we create a schema or a story for our experiences. And so, like for example, the word cow, little children create a story in their brain of what that word means, and it's in context to their experience. And so it could be different in India than it is here. And we do the same thing with relationships. And so if we've perceived relationships in a certain way, that's how relationships are. And that gets embedded into our body. into our neural pathways, into our nervous system. For example, if you witnessed relationships that were a roller coaster, fighting, reconciliation, if you witnessed relationships that were completely disconnected, that your nervous system is hardwired for that. Like, it's hardwired to be on fight or flight. It's hardwired for disconnection in relationships. And the more you can understand what your experience was, what you witnessed, and how that is hardwired in your nervous system, you can begin to make those changes. A lot of the women that I work with, they intellectually, they're like, I don't want to date someone who doesn't text me back, right? And it's not an intellectual thing. This is a body-mind thing. And the more you can understand that your nervous system is actually in the lead more than you are, then you can start to make some of those changes, because you want to be in the captain seat. You want to be able to walk your adult self and make better choices.
Okay. I've never heard of it that way before, but it's like your nervous system is driving the ship if you're not aware. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's like our kid self, you know, like we want the candy, we want the chocolate, we want the guy who's unavailable, because that reminds us of our childhood. And so we kind of have to reparent ourselves with this and be like, I love you so much that I'm not going to let you make this choice.
Okay. Can you tell me a little more about your personal journey? Because you said that that's what was the driver for you to become a coach and to want to help other women. So can you explain more about your dating history and the moment that you realized that you needed to change?
Yeah, so early on, I kind of was dating people who just weren't available and, you know, wouldn't text me back or have admiration for me as I wanted. And it definitely felt like a them problem. Like, why aren't they doing those things? And also, sometimes it felt like a me problem. Like, I'm broken. And if I was just X, Y, and Z, I would be able to be with someone who loved me the way that I deserve. And I would say in my 20s, I was in a really long-term relationship. I thought it was going to be a marriage, and very emotionally unavailable. And I just kind of thought at that time in my 20s, like, oh, this is how men are, I guess. You know, they just don't talk about hard stuff. But I was on my own, like, deep, personal, inner healing, psychological journey at that time. And I was like, no, because I saw other men within those circles who were able to have hard conversations, who were able to kind of show up and be a partner. And so I left that relationship and I was like, I'm going to do it different. And I started to be with the same type of person over and over. It was like, change the name. It was the same type of person. And it just, it was really similar to like an alcoholic having like a breakdown, like moment of awareness. I was chasing after somebody for 2 years who just was not available, did not want to be in a relationship with me. And it was just this moment where I was like, I have to do this differently. And a big thing for me is I always wanted to be a mother. And I knew that I wanted to be with someone who was going to be able to have a family with me. And I think that that's something that helped, that internal, movement, to where it was like a motivation to be like, I have to do this differently.
Wow. Okay. So you found that you were attracting the same thing in different people.
Yes.
That's a powerful realization. And also, I've had that similar experience, and it's actually unreal how powerful that is. Yes. That magnet to attract that one guy in that group that is the same as that pattern. In every city, every state, it's the same thing over and over.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important to have outside help, whether it's a coach or a therapist, somebody, because it's hard to change it early on with the same brain that created it, because the nerd wants to stay comfortable. And so even if you're, like, okay, I'm gonna do this. Your nervous system, it's really tricky. It's gonna trick you, and it's gonna be like, well, he's
Make exceptions. Like,
yeah,
yeah. Okay. It wants to go back to that
yes,
comfortable feeling. So, how did you find through your work you were able to change what you were hoping to feel? Because what you said earlier really hits me is that it's that comfortable resonance that you had with the unhealthy. How were you able to move the nervous system forward? Like, what was your technique?
yeah. So I did something very specific, and I do the exact same thing with my clients because it works.
Okay.
And so what I did is that I did an inventory, an audit of my relationships, and I got very, very clear what the pattern was. And then the next thing I did was that I created a very clear roadmap of who I want to be with. I looked at my values, I looked at my lifestyle, and this is non-negotiable. This isn't like, oh, well, maybe, because he's wanting to quit smoking, maybe it's okay. This is a hard line in the sand. This is who I want in my life, who I want to be the father of my children. And then I created very specific habits to soothe my nervous system so that whenever I meet this person, that I am regulated so I can make clear decisions. And so that looks different for different people, but that can look like doing a meditation before dates, taking deep breathing when you're on a date. You don't want to be in fight or flight when you're meeting people, because that's going to affect how they perceive you, how you're perceiving them. And then I also did a lot of integration of how to date mindfully with mindfulness and actual presence. And the last thing I did was created a lot of accountability and support, and other women in my life who were trying to do the same thing. We were each other's go-to buddy. let me run down this date with you. What do you think about this? When he said that, I think sometimes women can get in this negative, like venti place, but it's more of a reality check. Like, let's talk about, what is this person aligned with me? And I say too, that if this is something that really resonates with your listeners, when you do meet someone who is available, it won't necessarily feel like, it'll feel uncomfortable because it's not what you're used to. That takes a little work too, to understand that safety might not immediately feel like, oh, this is it. It might feel a little uncomfortable at first.
Yeah, that is really true. And it's like getting used to being in a place where it's secure and safe when you're used to being in a place that's very insecure and unsafe. It's very different. And I think it's so easy for us to attach what love feels like to that rush of excitement that's laced with insecurity, and the rug can get pulled out any moment, versus switching into this other place that could feel boring or just a very different energy. And that's really unique what you're doing as far as building that network around you, because it is a moment to moment situation. It's like you have to be able to manage one date after the next, and the thoughts you have after the date. I feel like it's got to be so helpful to have people to hold you accountable.
Yeah, I mean, we want to confirm our stories. That's just how we're built as humans, as animals. We want to confirm our stories. And so to be able to have a group of people around you who are helping you change and grow is so important. And back to what you were saying a moment ago, because this is an important point, because what comes up a lot in the work I do with women is they're like, I want to be attracted to this person, right? I want to have good sex. Like, am I not going to? Is this going to be like a boring person? And that's so far from the truth. But what happens is whenever we're attracted to people who are unavailable, it's an arousal sensation. So it can feel very arousing. And you could look at, similar to dog training, that we all have certain things that we've just created. So if you've created a heightened arousal for someone who doesn't text you back, it might feel less arousing when someone does text you back or is available. But if we're talking about attraction and intimacy, whenever we're with someone and we're safe and we're able to be open and vulnerable, its amount of intimacy and exploration. I tell my clients it's similar to like eating like a decadent chocolate cake or having a protein-rich, dense meal that's going to last a lifetime rather than instant gratification, that rush of emotion. This is something that's going to be sustaining for your nervous system. And it's also going to lead you down a path as far as intimacy goes that's unlike anything you've ever experienced.
That's pretty exciting, actually. Yeah. So currently in your practice, do you work with couples, individuals, men, women?
I don't work with couples. I mostly work with women, and I do work with some men. It's kind of dependent on I enjoy mostly working with women, but I love the men that I work with, and it's kind of, usually it's a referral, and also someone calls me, and I want to make sure that a lot of women are very much into this conversation. They hear what I'm saying, and they're like, yeah, I get that. I think men are catching up, and there are a lot of men, but they're still kind of newer. So sometimes men will contact me as a dating coach and think of like, Hitch, the movie or something, that I'm that type of dating coach, and that's not what I do. And so it tends to be more women that I work with.
Okay, great. And you go through kind of your own process that you used for yourself. Is that what you're working with mostly?
Yeah, so I have a support group where I work with groups of women, and I take them through that 6-step process. That's exactly what I talked about. And then I typically, after that group, will work in a 3-month coaching program with women to go even deeper. And it's called Becoming Secure. And we help re-hardwire that neural pathway and using a similar framework, but it's much more expanded.
Okay. Well, I think it's time for more people to be helping others that are coming from personal experience, because I don't think there's anything more powerful and can really raise people up than someone who's actually done it themselves. And I feel like there are a lot of teachers out there that no discredit to them. It's just they may be coming to it more academically and more through interests and coursework. But when you've actually experienced it and been able to level up your own nervous system to be able to have a secure relationship and a safe relationship, I feel like that is a huge asset as a coach, as a teacher, as a facilitator, because I think that women want to see someone that says, I did it. If I can do it, so can you. I mean, do you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I see a lot of people who have been in therapy for years, and I haven't like tackled this problem. And I'm not just crediting therapists, but some therapists, maybe they didn't have an issue in this area. And so they maybe just were saying things that didn't hit all of the boxes. And there's a great story that's about someone following in a hole, and a bunch of people come to try to help them out of the hole. A preacher, a fireman, all these different people try to help someone out of the hole. And then someone comes over and they jump in the hole. And the person's like, why did you jump in the hole? And they're like, well, I know how to get out. And so that's a really powerful thing when someone's been through it and they know what it's like and they know on the other side.
Yeah, well, definitely. I agree. I wanted to ask you, one thing that I do with every guest is I ask them a question about lenses, because my show is Her New Lens, and I like to offer a new perspective to listeners. And I wonder if you have a lens, either a lens that you look through that has been helpful to you in making big perspective shifts, or it's one that you just know is super helpful to recommend that you think could be something listeners could try to see things in a new way? Just anything come to mind for you?
Yeah. What comes to my mind, and it's a tagline on my email, and I say it in all my events at the end, and I'll explain it, but I'm going to say it first. Embrace where you are. It's exactly where you need to be.
Okay.
And I say that because when we are in a situation where we're not happy or we're doing something and we're like, I hate that I'm doing this, we want to like push it away and be like, I don't like that. But if you truly embrace your path, what's happening to you, the coping skills you're using, it actually opens you up to change and opens you up to receiving help. So that's
great
lens that I would like to invite listeners to take on.
Fantastic. So it's really, truly, fully accepting and embracing where you are right now, everything about you.
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, this has been a very illuminating conversation. And I've never heard it said that way before about our nervous systems, how much they're driving the bus, how much they're impacting our dating life. And I'm glad there are people like you out there really in there working with women, helping them to find their way through so that their nervous system can change. And I've often said too that the biggest thing that's happened, I feel like in my experience, just studying, reading, working, is the recognition of neuroplasticity, that it's possible for us to change. And we're not stuck with that ingrained path from when we were 4, living a very chaotic life. And I could cry thinking about it, like how lucky, how blessed that we actually can change and move our nervous system from here to here, where we just have a much higher baseline of happiness and deeper feelings of joy and just sovereign joy. What a blessing, right? That we can do that.
Yeah. And for women to kind of break some of these generational patterns that have been happening for a long time too, with that neuroplasticity and that inner knowing, and also, creating generations of children doing things like this can really affect the future of how we do things. Dating differently affects your children, affects how your children date, affects how they perceive relationships. And so this is such an important thing to embark upon.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to be sharing more about Amber in the notes. She also has a special gift that you'll be able to find attached to the show notes. So thank you so much, Amber.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor.
Great. Thank you.